In Chicago, Illinois, a peculiar string of incidents would unfold in the summer of 2017. A young man named Jacob Tanner had been diligently saving his hard-earned money for 2 long years with the dream of owning his very own car. Little did he know that his search for the perfect vehicle would lead him down a path of mystery and the supernatural. Jacob, a Cadillac enthusiast, had been scouring the classifieds on Craigslist, hoping to find a car that would fit his modest budget. After searching a few times a day for a couple of weeks, a 1992 Cadillac DeVille caught his eye. The car looked pristine, as if it had just rolled off the assembly line, and the price was surprisingly low. Jacob's gut told him that it was too good to be true, and that it had to be a scam. However, curiosity got the better of him, and Jacob decided to call the number listed in the ad. The voice on the other end belonged to a soft-spoken elderly gentleman named Clifford. Clifford explained that the reason the car was so affordable was because it had been used as a funeral procession vehicle by a local funeral home for whom he worked. The establishment had recently purchased new cars for their fleet, rendering the Cadillac obsolete. Intrigued by the car's unique history, Jacob arranged to meet Clifford the following morning for a viewing and test drive. As he laid eyes on the Cadillac for the first time, Jacob was awestruck by its beauty. The car ran like a dream, and Jacob couldn't believe his luck. He eagerly completed the paperwork and drove off in his new prize, still in disbelief that he had acquired such a magnificent vehicle for such a bargain. As the weeks passed, Jacob began to notice odd occurrences surrounding his beloved Cadillac. Every morning when he settled into the driver's seat, the car would be filled with the distinct aroma of freshly smoked cigarettes. Being a smoker himself, Jacob initially dismissed this peculiarity, attributing it to his own habits. However, stranger happenings soon began to occur. One evening, as Jacob gazed out of his living room window, he noticed that the dome light in his car was illuminated. Concerned about the potential drain on his battery, he ventured outside to switch it off, assuming that he had inadvertently left it on. However, upon returning to his apartment, he glanced out the window once more, only to find the dome light glowing again. Perplexed, Jacob made his way back to the car and turned off the light for a second time. However, this time he lingered beside the vehicle for a few minutes, ensuring that the light would remain off. Satisfied, he returned to his apartment, only to discover, to his utter disbelief, that the dome light had mysteriously illuminated itself once more. Frustrated and somewhat unnerved, Jacob marched downstairs for a third time, determined to put an end to the bizarre phenomenon. This time, after switching off the light, he stood beside the car for a full 15 minutes, watching intently for any signs of abnormality. Just as he was about to head back inside, Jacob sarcastically called out, "Are you finally done for the night? It's getting cold." Suddenly, a disembodied woman's chuckle echoed from directly behind him. Jacob spun around, expecting to catch sight of the prankster who had been toying with him, but to his astonishment there was no one to be seen. A chill ran down his spine as he realised the impossibility of such a chuckle being able to emanate so close to him at such a volume when the parking lot was completely empty. Unsettled, he hurried back to his apartment, casting one last glance out of the window to confirm that the dome light had remained off. Satisfied, he went to bed, his mind churning with questions and unease. As the days turned into weeks, other strange occurrences continued to plague Jacob and his mysterious Cadillac. One morning, as he approached the car, he discovered that the contents of his glove compartment had been strewn about haphazardly throughout the interior. all the while the now familiar scent of fresh cigarette smoke lingering heavily in the air. Jacob meticulously examined the car for any signs of break-in, but found none. Perplexed and somewhat shaken, he chose to ignore the incident, hoping that it was merely a bizarre anomaly. However, the oddities persisted. Jacob would be driving along in silence when, without warning, the radio would burst into life, blasting a station he had never listened to at an ear-splitting volume. The first time it happened, Jacob nearly jumped out of his seat, his heart pounding in his chest as he frantically reached for the power button. But no sooner had he silenced the radio than it roared back to life, as if possessed by an unseen force. Unnerved and desperate for answers, Jacob pulled into the nearest parking lot, which happened to be that of a Kmart store. He switched off the ignition and the radio, then fled the confines of the car, seeking solace in the mundane aisles of the department store. For over an hour he wandered aimlessly, his mind stirring with questions and fears. When he finally mustered the courage to return to his car, he was greeted once again by the unmistakable aroma of fresh cigarette smoke. The next few weeks passed without incident, lulling Jacob into a false sense of security. He began to wonder if the strange occurrences had finally come to an end, if perhaps he had simply been the victim of a series of elaborate pranks or his own overactive imagination. But the respite was short-lived. One evening, as Jacob sat in his apartment with a friend, Georgie, she suddenly turned to him and asked, "Who's sitting in your car?" Jacob leapt to his feet and raced to the window, his heart pounding in his chest. There, in the driver's seat of his Cadillac, sat a shadowy figure, motionless and surreal. Without hesitation, Jacob grabbed a baseball bat and tore out of the apartment, Georgie hot on his heels. They raced down the stairs and burst into the parking lot, ready to confront the intruder. But as they approached the car, they found it empty, the door still locked, and no sign of the mysterious figure. Baffled and more than a little frightened, Jacob and Georgie searched the parking lot, desperate for any clue that might explain the phantom occupant. But there was nothing to be found, no trace of the ghostly presence that had seemingly vanished into thin air. At his wits' end, Jacob placed a call to the funeral home the following day, determined to uncover any information that might shed light on the bizarre events plaguing his car. He spoke with the same elderly gentleman who had sold him the vehicle, Clifford, and hesitantly inquired if anything tragic or unusual had ever occurred in connection with that particular Cadillac. Clifford was initially taken aback by the question, but as Jacob recounted the strange occurrences he had experienced, the old man's verbal demeanour shifted. With a heavy sigh, Clifford revealed that the car had been the preferred vehicle of the funeral home's most senior and beloved employee, a woman named Mabel Northfield. Mabel had recently passed away, and the car had been like an extension of herself, a cherished possession that she had cared for with the utmost devotion. Jacob then asked the question that had been burning in his mind. Had Mabel been a smoker? Clifford confirmed that she had been, and in that moment the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Jacob knew with a certainty that defied rational explanation that Mabel's spirit was the force behind the inexplicable events that had plagued his car, particularly the chuckle he had heard, which had seemed to belong to a woman. From that day forward, Jacob learned to coexist with the ghostly presence that seemed to linger within his Cadillac. The strange occurrences continued, but they took on a more benign, almost playful quality. The hazard lights would flicker to life of their own accord, The scent of cigarette smoke would waft through the air, and objects would mysteriously rearrange themselves within the car's interior. The radio would spring to life, playing classic hits, and the locks would engage and disengage as if manipulated by invisible hands. Sometimes Jacob would even feel the gentlest of touches, a whisper-soft sensation that he knew could only be Mabel's presence. In time, Jacob came to understand that Mabel's spirit was not malevolent, but rather a manifestation of her deep attachment to the car and her reluctance to let go of the earthly realm. He began to view the ghostly occurrences not as a source of fear, but as a reminder of the enduring power of human connection, even beyond the veil of death. As he drove the enigmatic Cadillac, Jacob would often find himself wondering about the nature of life and death, about the ties that bind us to the physical world, and the forces that might compel us to linger after our time has passed. He knew that Mabel's spirit, though no longer of this earth, was as real and present as the car he drove, a reminder that the veil between the living and the dead is far thinner than we might imagine. And so the story of the haunted Cadillac endures, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit and the mysteries that lie just beyond the reach of our understanding. For Jacob Tanner, it is a tale that will forever be etched into his thoughts, a reminder that even in the face of the unknown, there is beauty and meaning to be found in the unlikeliest of places.